As we enter year number 15 of the Buffalo Sabres playoff drought, I've got a little fun for you today. The All Sabres drought team. How good is it? Could it make the playoffs if we were to put everybody in their primes? Talk about it. Coming up in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out and watch us on our YouTube channel. Be sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you are watching the show along there. You also can check out our Locked On Sabres text club. That is available to you over at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. That is the place to sign up. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a beautiful Wednesday in Buffalo. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Let's have some fun today. It is the middle of the summer. There is not a lot happening in the world of hockey. We learned earlier in the week about a arbitration hearing for Sabres defenseman Connor Timmins, and that is going to be coming our way in the first week of August. Not that interesting of a contract to figure out whether it's $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. I don't really think that there's a lot of wiggle room on what that deal could end up being, and they probably come to an extension before it ends up happening anyway. So keep you updated if we get any other big moves from the Sabres, but all's quiet on the NHL front at this moment in time. So let's have some fun today. As you know, the playoff drought is this big dark cloud hanging over our heads. Well, you ever watch the movie Twisters when they drive into the tornado and they start shooting fireworks up into the tornado? Well, that's what I want to do today. I want to shoot some fireworks up into that dark cloud that is right now hanging over our heads. All Sabres drought team and how good it is, how bad even you could consider it to be. We'll go through it. Where you disagree, would love to hear some feedback from the fans and the listeners on who I'm leaving out, or maybe I'm building the team wrong in your minds. Before we get into it, got all the forwards, got all the defensemen and all the goaltenders coming your way on today's show. And this is just looking at the player's career within the playoff drought. So, for example, Thomas Vanek. I'm not counting any of Thomas Vanek's career from 2006 through to 2011. I'm going from the 11-12 season and on. So you're only getting like 2.5 years of Thomas Vanek, not the previous 5 or 6. So that's the only part of it that I'm looking at, and I'm trying to take that player when they were at their best during the Sabres playoff drought. You know, I'm someone in sports who likes to look at the peak a little bit more than longevity, but I do try to take both into account. How good was that player at their best, and also how long did they play for the team? But I was willing to give a couple of guys a nod on this list that had not played much more than about 100 games. I don't believe I put anybody on this team that played fewer than 100 games for this team. But even that's not a lot. That's only a full season's worth and then some change after the fact. So that's coming your way on today's show. Again, if you want to reach out, you can do it on Twitter, you can do it on YouTube, or even better would be our text club. I'll read a couple of texts after the fact of people that they thought I left out, the texters. And I can tell you so far, they think there were a couple of defensemen that I left off, including one that little controversial, as controversial as you could get, I guess, for a list like this. So let's fire it off. Let's go right to the center position. As we build out this roster, going to go position by position. Tried to stick with, what the guy mostly played in their careers and also what they're listed at. I don't fully trust what players are listed at on these sites, but you got to go by something. So tried to do it the best I could. So starting at the center position, here we go. We got number 1 center, Jack Eichel, on this list. Number 2 center, Tage Thompson. Ryan O'Reilly as my 3rd line center, and then Dylan Cousins as the 4th line center. Listing Eichel as the number 1 center over Tage, maybe that's a good debate. Right now, you look at their careers, and both of their careers span the entirety of the drought. Tage actually played more games. Jack Eichel, 375 games to Tage Thompson's 407, 139 goals for Eichel, 173 for Thompson. But the point disparity and then the points per game disparity is the big difference here. When you go to Eichel and you go to Thompson, 355 points for Eichel in 375 games. That is good for, when you break it down, 0.95 points per game. That is the best of any Sabre during the playoff drought. Nobody had more points per game than Eichel did. And I know a lot of fans hate him right now, but you look back on his career, even for the graphic on our YouTube channel, I tried to find a picture of him wearing the number 15. I think our memories of Eichel wearing 15 are a little more fond of him than wearing the number 9, even though he was better with the number 9. But almost a full point per game. Nobody else was above 0.86, and Eichel was at 0.95. And Thompson, he is dinged a little bit because of how slow of a starter he was, and Eichel was not that. He, of course, scored his first game as a Buffalo Sabre. But I go Eichel over Thompson, more of a well-rounded player in my mind. He didn't have the injury problems that Tage did, and he never really had the bad years that Thompson did. So if I'm building this team out, I got Eichel center 1, Thompson center 2. Third and fourth line center. So O'Reilly, to me, at third line center is an easy one. He only played 224 games, 65 goals, 176 points. Fourth on the Sabres in this time period in points per game. Very good player. And even though it's kind of amazing that he admitted to losing his love for the game, which, by the way, if you didn't see it, Connor Clifton said basically the same thing yesterday in Pittsburgh, that he lost it with the Sabres. That doesn't happen. Happened to O'Reilly. He never got bad. Like, he never pouted out there on the ice. Maybe he was down in the dumps after the game would end, like most Sabre fans would be. But show me the season where Ryan O'Reilly didn't put it all together for the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, that year where he, quote, lost his love for the game, in his 16 seasons in the National Hockey League, that season in total points ranked 4th. He did get Selke votes that year, 2nd in the Lady Byng. I mean, that's not as much of a performance award, but whatever. Ryan O'Reilly performed that year, despite all the stuff that might have been going on mentally behind the scenes. Dylan Cousins, 4th line center, in part because not a lot of good options past those top 3. Cousins, it's the one big year. And that one year was as good as any other center on this list. Cody Hodgson had a decent year where he had 45 points, but it was so bad otherwise. I'm not doing that at all. Ryan McLeod, it's only one season, and it's not as good as the one season that Cousins had, so not putting him on the list. Derek Roy only played 80 games, and it was only a 17-goal campaign. Middlestat was the closest I got. Cousins versus Middlestat. But for Cousins, I had one great year and then a bunch of years or even bad years. Middlestat, it was 2 good years, one of which he was traded early at one point in, followed by a bunch of, or preceded by a bunch of bad years. So I go Cousins over Middlestat, but that one I could see as being debatable. So that's center. Right wing, top 4 right wingers. Sam Reinhart, 454 games, 134 goals and 295 points is definitely my top line right winger on this one. It's the longevity. It is the consistency. Really, after he became a full-time NHLer, he was never a bad player for the Buffalo Sabres. And if you look at some of his advanced numbers and analytical numbers, it would show that he was even better than we realized while he was in Buffalo. And then that was kind of realized in Florida. And we see why those numbers were what they were with the Sabres. Alex Tuch, second line right winger. These are the top 2. This is a tier. Like, you could even put Tuch over Reinhart, and I don't think that that's that bad of an idea at all. In fact, really, now that I'm looking at it, maybe I did Tuch a disservice. It's 200 more games of Reinhart doing it at this level versus Tuch, but points per game, it goes to Tuch by a wide margin, 0.86 to 0.65. Now that I'm looking back on it, I would change this. I would put Alex Tuch as the first line right winger and Reinhart as the second line right winger. Tuch's been better with the Buffalo Sabres. Tuch ranks 2nd in points per game, tied for 2nd in points per game at the right wing at all positions. So right winger, Tuch and Reinhart, though, that's top tier. Third and fourth, tough. You could go Kyle Kyle Okposo, but he was such a disappointment in almost every season he played that there was no great season for Kyle Okposo. And I don't know, that thing that happened at the end of his career where he led a revolt against fans, which was complete BS and will always be. Pominville, Jason Pominville. Jason Pominville at the very beginning of the drought had a fantastic season for the Buffalo Sabres. He was a great player still. And in that 11-12 season, he's an all-star, 30 goals, 43 points, 73 points, one of the top seasons that anybody's had during the playoff drought while being really good defensively. Pominville. And then he comes back and he wasn't great, but 32 goals in 2 seasons, that's fine. That is completely fine for a player that was 35 and 36 years old. He's a part of the J. Crew line with Jack Eichel and Jeff Skinner. So Pominville, 72 goals in the playoff drought, not bad. And then Tyler Ennis, who is listed as a right winger on NHL.com, he played a little bit of everything. I'm going to throw him in here. Little personal bias for me. I loved watching Tyler Ennis as a player. There is a statistical argument to back up him being on this list. Again, you look at points per game and some of the other advanced stats. He was a good creator of chances. Not a very good two-way player, but 0.54 points per game. I've got some worse players on here. Drew Stafford was in consideration. Okposo, as I mentioned. But I'm going with Ennis as the fourth right winger on the All Sabres drought team. And then finally at forward, left wing, Jeff Skinner, Thomas Vanek, Victor Olofsson, and Evander Kane. Skinner, every year that Ralph Kruger wasn't the coach, he was fantastic. Or, that very last season, he was okay, 20 goals and led the team in goals with a month to go in the season, whatever. Thomas Vanek, it's only 129 games at the end, but he was very good in that drought still at the end with 0.86 points per game, 50 goals, 111 points in 129 games. Olofsson and Evander Kane. I went with goal production, and both of them scored. I could have put JJ Peterka on this list, but him and Kane were almost dead even in goals. 68 for Kane, 67 for Peterka, I believe. But Kane played 30 fewer games. So I'm going to go with the guy that was more efficient scoring goals, at least by games. Kane shot the puck a lot, so efficient might be the wrong word there. But I'll throw Kane on there as the fourth line right winger, or left winger. So that's the forward group. To the defensemen, when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, we have a little fun All Sabres Drought edition of Locked On Sabres. Today's edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. I've been doing that with Toronto lately. They have been playing so well. A quick drive up for an afternoon game. It's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without all the stress. With the money that you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually will drop the closer that you get to first pitch. I do that a lot for football and for baseball. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB. Makes it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming Major League Baseball game. Again, Toronto and New York got this series wrapping up here, but Toronto's got some big ones coming up. Boston is coming into town, so be sure to check that out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Stinky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Middle of the summer. Bills are underway at training camp, and I know that football's on the brain, but, once in a while, maybe you like a little bit of hockey, and glad to bring that to you here in the middle of July. So, All Sabres drought team went through the forwards. We'll show you the whole roster at the end here, put that together too, but starting with the defensemen, just want to mention forwards, there were a couple tough ones. Do I want to put Evander Kane on this? Do I really want to put Olofsson? Do I really want to put Dylan Cousins? Some of these guys have been big disappointments. All of them at one point in time were really good players for the Buffalo Sabres. Every forward I mentioned at least one point in time, that's a good player. Defensemen, it was hard to find 6 good defensemen. I did not put Rasmus Dahlin on the top 6, despite the fact, I still think it's true, he's played more minutes during the playoff drought than any Buffalo Sabre. I think that is still true. It was bad the whole time. And maybe he would have been better on the second pair or the third pair. But I got to go with what was out there. He was out there all the time, and he stunk. And I still believe to this day there is no individual player that has more to do with the 15 or 14-year playoff drought than Rasmus Dahlin. I think he's less to do with it than coaches that have been here and less to do with it than GMs and ownership and management. But amongst the players, you can blame Jack Eichel if you want. You can blame Sam Reinhart if you want. Those guys were great when they were here. This guy was on the ice all the time and was always bad. So he's not on my list because I never thought he was a good defenseman. 6 good defensemen. All right, I tried. Here you go. Number 1, easily, Rasmus Dahlin. You could argue he's the best Sabre of the drought. And I think you can make a really convincing case of that. Not a great start for Dahlin, of course. Ralph Kruger almost ruined him. You had to have Don Granato come in and kind of save the day, but he did. And Dahlin has turned into one of the best defensemen in the world. I would argue he's the best two-way defenseman in hockey if you include physicality and playing your own end, plus the offensive game, power play, all of it. Dahlin is incredible. And I pray that he never has the urge to leave this team. And I don't blame him if in the next couple of years he does, because he is a Stanley Cup caliber player. No doubt of it. He's a Norris caliber player. He's a Conn Smythe caliber player. He is a Stanley Cup caliber player, and he deserves better. And I really hope the Sabres are able to give him better. And we'll see if they're able to. Second, already tough. I went Christian Ehrhoff. Last week, when it was the anniversary of, or 2 weeks ago, when it was the anniversary of Ehrhoff signing, I guess that was 3 weeks ago now. Got a lot of, that was bad. It was a bad signing. And that's because you see the big, flashy 10 years on the contract. Ehrhoff was good, and he was good the whole time. Now, the only thing he wasn't good at, and it was the thing people were sold on, and that's why they thought he wasn't a very good player. When he got here, it was, man, wait till you see this guy shot. He's got a cannon. He's going to shoot at 100 miles an hour. And he constantly missed the net. Always was having his shot blocked. No doubt. That part of it didn't really work out. He scored in his 2 previous seasons before arriving in Buffalo with the Vancouver Canucks, 28 goals. And in 3 years with the Buffalo Sabres, he scored 16 goals. So yes, you should have been let down by that. He did not stay at the level that he was in Vancouver, but that's because he was one of the 10 best defensemen in the world with Vancouver. If you don't believe me, go look at the Norris voting. He was 9th in Norris voting in 2010. He was 8th in Norris voting in 2011. Then he got to the Buffalo Sabres. Was he a top 10 defenseman with the Buffalo Sabres? No, but he was good. He was a very, very good defenseman. And they didn't buy him out because he was bad. They bought him out because they were afraid of a compliance buyout recapture penalty if he were to retire at a certain year. It was a weird cap reason that they got rid of him. And they got compliance buyouts then to walk away for $0 on the cap. So that's why they did it. 192 games, 87 points. I get it. He wasn't great, but 23, 24, 25 minutes a night, playing big minutes, exposed to the toughest matchups. I thought he was good the whole time he was here. And I think he, honestly, to me, deserves to be the second defenseman mentioned here. Third, I'm already putting Owen Power third. He is not the player yet that I hope he becomes, and I think there is a lot more there for Owen Power. But what do I have already? I have a defenseman that's played 242 games, 3 full seasons, has been very good in all 3 of those seasons, and puts up points. But, he doesn't body check a lot. He's not imposing in his own end. But I got a player that for 3 years in a row has played 20-plus minutes a night, puts up good points, and is a pretty good defenseman all along the way. Again, the bar is pretty low here, guys. Power makes this list, whether you like it or not. And I think he does pretty easily. And then the bottom 3, really tough. I went Jordan Leopold, number 4. It's only 103 games. I went back and looked at Jordan Leopold's evolving hockey page. Maybe we should do this with some former Sabres. Like, hey, was this guy actually good? Do the numbers show this guy I remembered from back in time was actually good? Jordan Leopold, you'll find that the answer to that question is, yeah, he was. That 2011-12 season, 90th percentile goals above replacement at the defensive position in the NHL. Really good player. And it was only 1 year, but played 22 minutes a night that one season. And then I've got 24 more games the next year before he was traded for a couple of second-round picks. So, yeah, I mean, his career high in points for the Sabres and really in general and goals was in the year they made the playoffs. But that next year after they made the playoffs where he was still here, he was still a good player. So, Leopold. It's only 103 games, but I'm putting him on the list. Andre Sekera. Again, not a lot of games, 106 games. Advanced stats. This guy was really good player in his own end. He was smooth, put up a little bit of pointage. He probably should have been a guy they hung on to for a long time. That's when the Sabres started to worry too much about toughness and not enough about just who are the good players. Sekera became Sekera. He should have stuck around. He was a very good player. He is, to me, one of the 6 best defensemen the Sabres have had during the playoff drought. And the 6th guy, I'm going with Jake McCabe. Jake McCabe, physically imposing, was a well-liked player, played a lot of games for the Buffalo Sabres, 353 games. And really, he was really young and not a big contributor for a lot of his career in Buffalo. I mean, of the 8 years with the Sabres, he only averaged 20 minutes a night once. You know what's interesting? In the last 2 years in Toronto, he's averaged 20 minutes a night. He's been very good while doing it in his own end. So Jake McCabe, good defensive defenseman, physical player. Remember, he blasts Patrick Laine coming over the middle. To me, he's one of the 6 best defensemen as well. So Dahlin, Ehrhoff, Power, Leopold, Sekera, and McCabe. The Text Club really wanted Brandon Montour on here. Montour was not good when he was here. It's not his fault, though. So I'm not putting him on here because he didn't show me. He didn't have the big year because he didn't get a chance. Ralph Kruger ruined him while he was here. He was great when he left and pretty good before. Ralph Kruger played Brandon Montour at forward. Gave him no opportunity. It was a disaster. It was a joke. He was a good player the whole time, but we just didn't get to see it. And that's not his fault. It was the coach's fault. When we come back, the goaltending. And there's a good debate for number 2 goaltender. Not a good debate for number 1 goaltender. Talk about it when we come back. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are in full swing. And whether you are all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. If you are already following the action, why not make it a little bit more thrilling? You know, I mentioned these Toronto playoff games right now, or baseball games. I'm watching them against the Yankees, and I'm thinking, all right, they're down 1. Let me live bet that and, get the odds while they're a little bit lower. And I always like throwing Bills to win the division with anything. I know I've got to wait on that until the winter, until literally January, but it's such an easy bet. And it to me, the odds don't reflect what it probably should be. How could you imagine the Bills not winning this division? Of course, it could happen, but I can't see it. I like throwing that in to make anything a little bit of a parlay. So FanDuel Sportsbook, new daily promotions every day. The app is super user-friendly. You got same game parlay options. You got a bunch of different things that you could do. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 right now, and you get a $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Sneaky Joe DiBiase wrapping things up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with the All Sabres Drought Team. Goaltender to me is an easy one for number 1 and then a little bit more difficult for number 2. The leader for the Buffalo Sabres during the playoff drought in save percentage amongst goalies that have played at least 50 games is Ryan Miller. No surprise. He did play 141 games during the drought because, of course, remember, he's here through into 2014. So you get multiple years, good save percentage, good seasons, while Miller's the goaltender. He actually had a winning record during that time. Miller's the number 1 by far. Number 2 is really the bigger question. And I will admit myself, I'm gonna put Linus Ullmark on here. Linus Ullmark had a winning record during his time with the Buffalo Sabres in the playoff drought. Had a .912 save percentage. He was a good goaltender. He was a consistent goaltender with his play. The problem was he just couldn't stay healthy. The guy you could argue above him, honestly, is Robin Lehner. Would you be surprised to know Robin Lehner started more games for the Buffalo Sabres than Linus Ullmark and had a higher save percentage by 0.04 of a point. He had more shutouts, twice as many as Linus Ullmark did. If you carry it 4 times many penalty minutes, that shouldn't surprise anybody. Robin Lehner, but some of the advanced stats show that Lehner was not as good as Ullmark, even though some of those very, very baseline stats do. So with that, the winning record that Ullmark had and the likability that Ullmark had, I think you can make a smart argument that Ullmark was a better goaltender, and I think most just liked Ullmark more during his time here. I feel bad for Lehner. Lehner's had he has had, these rants on Twitter where you worry for the guy's personal well-being. And of course, there were stories about that when he left the Buffalo Sabres, or maybe even while he was here. Problems with maybe substance abuse. Like, there's just a lot there with Robin Lehner. And he's kind of out of the public eye right now. Isn't still playing in the National Hockey League. His career kind of came to an end there with that surgery. I think it's pretty much over, despite the fact that he's still only like 33, 34 years old. Ullmark was good the whole time. Ullmark was well-liked. He's maybe the most lovable drought Sabre. I think you can make that case. He's the most lovable drought Sabre. So the Minions helmet, I'm putting him as the backup goaltender as my number 2. So at the end of it all, this is what the Sabres drought team looks like. Top line, Eichel, Skinner, and Reinhart. Second line, Thompson, Vanek, and Tuck. Third line, O'Reilly, Olofsson, and Pominville. Fourth line, Cousins, Kane, and Ennis. Defense group, Ehrhoff and Dahlin on the top, Leopold and Power on the second, Sekera and McCabe on the third, and then Miller and Ullmark in goal. When you look at it in totality, you might think that's a playoff team. That's a playoff team, and that's a team that could win multiple rounds in the postseason if they were all at their best at the exact same time. And I didn't really focus on, the fourth line, like, Johan Larsson's a better fit for the fourth line. I just threw as much talent on there as I could find. So that's the group. If you disagree with somebody being on the list, or you think somebody that isn't on the list should be, feel free to reach out. Let me know what you think. As this has been an edition of Sabres Droughtology as we enter the 15th season of the drought. And here's to hoping that the drought doesn't actually reach number 15, but there's probably a decent chance of that. Well, that'll do it for us today here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you want more hockey talk and you want it more league-wide, be sure to check out Locked On NHL. There's no offseason like the NHL, and there's still stuff that could be happening league-wide, so be sure to check it out. Locked On NHL's on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. And we'll talk to you. I'm going to Montreal, actually, this weekend, so I will talk to you next week here on the podcast. I'll let you know how it is. I'm excited. I've never been to Montreal. I know a lot of people I know that have played hockey, like at higher levels, have done that, and everybody says it's great, so might be a place I want to check out a game, too, in the future. But that'll do it for us. Talk to you next week here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.